Imagine a normal weekday morning when suddenly the internet stops working, not just in one city or one country, but across large parts of the world. This is not a real event, but it is a possible scenario. There are no explosions, no visible damage, and no immediate explanation. Digital systems simply stop responding. Phones fail to load pages, messages remain unsent, and cloud-based services quietly go offline in the background. At first, most people would assume it is a temporary outage, something local, something that will be fixed within minutes or hours, as it always has been before. But as time passes, it becomes clear that this situation is different. If the internet remained unavailable, offices that depend on email, cloud storage, and online communication would be forced to pause their work. Remote systems would fail, shared documents would become inaccessible, and many businesses would suddenly be unable to operate. News organizations would struggle to gather information without live feeds, social platforms, or instant communication with reporters around the world. Verification would slow, and uncertainty would grow. Airports would begin switching to manual systems, relying on radios, printed schedules, and direct human coordination to manage flights and passengers. Delays would increase, even though planes already in the air would continue flying safely. Online banking and digital payments would likely be suspended to protect financial systems from errors and fraud. ATMs and card payments could become unreliable, pushing people toward cash transactions. Stock markets would likely halt trading altogether, not because of economic collapse, but because accurate information would no longer be available to support real-time decisions. Hospitals are designed to handle emergencies, but a prolonged internet outage would force them to rely entirely on offline systems. Paper records, local databases, and direct communication would become critical, while non-essential digital services would be delayed. Global shipping and logistics would slow significantly. Automated tracking systems would fail to update routes, schedules, and inventory, creating delays in the movement of food, fuel, and essential goods. Within a few days, supply chains could begin to feel strained, not because resources no longer exist, but because coordination has become slower and more manual. Without instant access to online information, people would begin gathering in public spaces. Conversations would replace notifications, and updates would be shared face-to-face as communities try to understand what is happening. In this situation, rumors would spread more slowly than usual, but verified information would become far more valuable. Radio would once again become one of the most reliable sources of news and updates. Governments would communicate through television broadcasts, radio announcements, and printed notices rather than online platforms. Businesses that rely entirely on the internet would be forced to adapt or temporarily close. Meanwhile, local shops and services that operate offline would become increasingly important. Communities would begin organizing locally. People would share resources, coordinate transport, and support one another in ways that require trust rather than technology. Navigation would return to paper maps, memory, and local knowledge. Travel would slow, but it would not stop. As the days pass, daily life would begin to change, not dramatically, but noticeably. The pace of society would slow down, yet it would continue functioning. Families would spend more time together, not because of intention, but because digital distractions are no longer available. Some people would feel anxiety due to limited access to information, while others might experience relief from constant digital pressure. By the end of a week, routines would look different. People would adapt, just as they always have when systems fail. If the internet were eventually restored, connections would return quickly. Messages would flood in, systems would reboot, and the speed of modern life would resume. But habits would not reset as easily. This scenario reveals how deeply modern civilization depends on invisible digital systems. It also shows how adaptable humans can be when those systems fail. This has not happened, but it could. And the real question is not whether the internet can go down, it is whether we are prepared if it does.